Good day. I'm Joseph Noor. I'm a medical doctor and a biochemist, and I'm the author of Document X, Direct Evidence of God's Existence. I want to discuss now the forces of nature according to the Quran. Now, if you observe our natural world, you'll find there's an endless variety of objects, living and non-living. But ours is also a world of activity. Mountains are destroyed while others are being raised. Land masses move across the surface of the earth, carrying entire continents on their backs, powered by the internal heat of the earth. In our bodies resides an active universe. So what lies at the heart of such activities? It is the forces of nature. You wouldn't be able to blink an eye or take a breath without their help. Now, the myriad activities explained would suggest that there are countless of these forces which drive these activities. But careful research has shown that these apparent innumerable forces of nature can be reduced to just four basic varieties. And these are the electromagnetic force, abbreviated the EM force, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and gravity. Let's look at them individually. The EM force, the electromagnetic force, exists between charged particles like electrons. It is the electromagnetic attraction between electrons and positively charged protons which reside in the nucleus that assists to maintain the architecture of the atom. The EM force is also responsible for structure building. Positively charged protons, they reside in the nucleus. Now we know that like charges repel each other. So how is the stability of the nucleus maintained? It turns out there's a much stronger force than the electrical repulsion between the positively charged protons, and that is the strong nuclear force, which effectively overpowers the electromagnetic repulsion between the positively charged protons and hold the nucleus together. The third force is the weak nuclear force, which is responsible for radioactive decay. It has many practical applications, such as determining the age of fossils and so on. And the last force is the force of gravity, which is at the heart of the celestial motion in the universe. Now, how do these forces operate? What is their mechanism of action? Just as there are in the world of matter on a microscopic scale, matter particles such as protons, neutrons, and electrons, so there are basic force units. Each of these four forces I mentioned has one or more of these basic force units, and they represent the smallest constituent of a particular force. They carry their respective forces and are particles themselves. In this understanding, the photon, for example, is the smallest packet of the electromagnetic force. It is actually the exchange of a photon between charged particles that induces the response. If like charges are involved, the response is that of a repulsion. With unlike charges, it's attraction. This begs the question, how does the same photon cause repulsion when like charges are involved and attraction with unlike charges? Well, photons are not only force carriers, they also carry information. When like charges are involved, the messages move apart. When unlike charges are concerned, the messages come close. Now, the same considerations apply to the strong nuclear force. The elementary unit of the strong nuclear force are the gluons. They carry the strong force and they glue the protons together, maintaining the architecture of the nucleus. Then the vector bosons are the basic force units of the weak nuclear force, and the hypothetical gravitons are the elementary units of the gravitational force. For example, it is the exchange of gravitons between the sun and the earth which induces the gravitational attraction. Now, concerning the forces of nature, the Quran states in 35:1 and 2, "Originator of the heavens and the earth, who created the forces of nature, which are forms of energy, messenger particles moving at a great speed 2, 3, and 4. Now, the basic raw material of the universe, maybe being energy or the subunits of space and time, were brought into being newly by God, which never existed before, and this is what the term originator means. And this is followed by the phrase who created the forces of nature. The forces of nature is appropriately mentioned here with the origin of the universe, because they play such a crucial role in how the universe unfolded. And this is followed by a quantum description of the forces of nature, that they are messenger particles, forms of energy. They move at a great speed. They have to move at a great speed because they barely exist for a fraction of a billionth of a second before they are destroyed. So they have to travel at phenomenal speed to reach their destination, such as a neighboring quark or an electron, before they are destroyed. And the numbers 2, 3, and 4 may be a hint as to the number of basic force units which I mentioned earlier. The photons, the gravitons, the gluons, and the vector bosons. Now you can see I've inserted the word particles for the following reason. According to 5147, the foundation of the universe was laid on energy. Now today, energy and its matter equivalent pervades the entire universe. In 2130, the Quran speaks about the origin of space. Now the universe was first tiny, embracing the whole of space-time. Today, space is everywhere. So anything created in the beginning is likely to be a universal phenomenon. Now follow this. In chapter 1061, the Quran speaks about atoms and subatomic particles being universal entities. Now following the line of reasoning I just mentioned, then it's very likely that matter emerged in a particle form. And since we are dealing with the origin of the universe and the origin of the forces of nature, it is therefore conceivable or very likely that the forces also emerge as particles, and hence my insertion of the word particles. Another key word in this verse is that of malaika. Now malaika should be translated as a means of communication, a force, a power, or a form of energy. Now since these are descriptive terms of the forces of nature, I have translated it as such. Now my translation is based on classical Arabic and the way the word is used throughout the Quran. The conventional understanding of malaika as hypothetical beings, as angels possessing 2, 3, and 4 wings, is entirely imaginary. Now where do these forces come from? In chapter 15 it says, and the hidden or unseen forces of nature were created long before the creation of man, out of intense radiation. Now, the verse just prior to this verse speaks about the evolution of man from black stagnant mud, and hence my insertion. Now, where do these forces come from? According to this verse, it tells us that these forces emerge from the heat generated by the Big Bang. That massive energy outburst caused by the Big Bang also generated the forces of nature. In the first part of the verse, it describes the forces as unseen or hidden. Why unseen? Because we know that these forces are unseen. I mean, gravity, for example, you can't see gravity, although you can measure it or sense it. And what is the other meaning of the force of nature being described as hidden? Now, this may refer to the concept of symmetry. Symmetry in relation to the forces of nature means that although you perceive these forces today as distinct, they were once united into a super force in the first moment of creation. According to scientists, these 4 forces of nature are complementary aspects of this single super force which emerged in the first moment of creation. As the universe cooled and expanded, the 4 forces sequentially diverged from the single integrated super force in the beginning. And scientists can actually, under certain conditions, reveal this identicalness or symmetry. And the Quran seems to support this idea that of a super united force in the beginning, because it speaks about the force of nature being created from the same source, heat. So in summary, therefore, the Quran describes in precise terms the quantum features of the forces of nature, that they are forms of energy, messenger particles moving at a great speed, and also describe the initial state of the universe as violent and intensely hot. The word Nari Samum is a key word which means violent and intensely hot, and this is precisely how scientists describe the initial state of the universe.